Yeah, thanks everybody. Obviously, great to see all you faces, friendly faces again, ahead of an exciting season for LAFC. We'll be here to answer any questions. I think we've been at work tirelessly to make the moves that we feel like we need to make in order to maintain our competitiveness in this league. It's not an easy task given the way our league is constructed and what have you, but as we have shown in the past, we have been able to, and I'm confident we will continue to be able to make some of these decisions, some of them hard ones, in order to make sure that we put a team out there that is representative of what we stand for at LAFC and one that our fans and our city will continue to be proud of.
I would assume it's fair to say you probably feel like you have a lot of work to do. Has this window been, or this off-season been slower to develop than in other things? So by this time, normally you have a lot of stuff done.
Yeah, no, absolutely true. I think it is what is true, and I think the fact that we went more than a month later this year than we did last year makes it difficult. I think our off-season work was concentrated into a much shorter period than we are used to. It's interesting because while I would say relative to previous years in terms of the group we had together, there is still, I would say, work to be done. I think the heavy lifting has been done. I just think the announcements are to come. That we are a bit behind relative to where we are, and I think part of that was again going so far into the final. And then I think the other part of it is when you have to make moves of departures to create the space to bring people in. A lot of that work had to be done, and when you're doing it, in mid-December, right before Christmas, it does delay things a little bit. But having said that, I think we have a core here that we're really excited about, and we have some additions that we will be in position to announce very shortly to give our excellent staff the players that we know will result in a competitive group.
Let's see that Denis is on this roster, Kellen and Vela or not.
Mm-hmm.
Is there what's the finality in all of those three that Carlos and Kellen won't be back and that Denis will be?
I think there's finality in some of them. I think they're all set. I'll take them all separately if that's okay. Denis is here. He unfortunately got sick before planning to come back, which we understood and obviously granted him time to be well enough before flying. But Denis is coming back, as I think we expected all along, unless we had a transfer that has not materialized. And so Denis is motivated and excited to come back and help us win more trophies. The other two you mentioned were our free agents. I think, as you have seen over the last 2 years, our league is not designed to do what we've done these last 2 years. And then again now, we don't take years off at LAFC. We go for it every single year. And I think a result of that is now the tough work that we've had to do. And I think ironically, despite saying we still have some signings to do, this has been not even close, but by far the busiest offseason I have ever had, including our scouts and everybody. It has been absolutely nonstop, and I think that work is paying off. And I think what's difficult, I think, from the outside is people on the outside can't see what's around the corner. I can, our staff can, and I know we're really excited about this season. There's going to be change. Like last year, we are in a very disadvantaged position when it comes to negotiating with free agents because the last 2 years, the value of our players has risen because of their success here. As we have success, I'm not going to get into rules and things, but managing a salary cap gets incredibly tight. So you combine the value of those players going up, you combine our money shrinking in effect, and it makes it really difficult for us to compete for free agents. We're always successful at attracting the free agents. What's difficult is keeping them because they get really significant offers from teams that have more flexibility in what they can offer. Carlos and Kellen are both in that position, and I could say that Kellen is not coming back. I don't know exactly where he will land, and obviously we wish him well. I've been in touch with Kellen and thanked him for his time here. These 2 years were very successful that we had with him as a big part of what we achieved at LAFC. Carlos, we remain in open conversation. I am hopeful we'll be able to find something. I think it's going to come down to us putting our best foot forward, and unfortunately, with all the comings and goings, that we frustratingly have not had that clarity to date. But we are in ongoing conversation with him, his representatives. We will put our best foot forward in the hopes of Carlos coming back to LAFC, and ultimately that's going to be, a conversation in the next couple days and week in the hopes that happens. If it does not, obviously that would be unfortunate for us. But I hope there's more to the Carlos Vela story here at LAFC.
Thanks. 2023, which actually you guys didn't get to the goal commitment, right, to be the champions.
Yeah, I'm glad you raised that. I'm going to take the opportunity to address last year because I haven't had the chance to after the final, or the day of the final. It is true we didn't achieve our ultimate objective. Absolutely. Are we disappointed about that? For sure. I do believe that we can be disappointed that we did not win the Champions League like we wanted. We did not win MLS Cup like we wanted. But I think we would be remiss to then categorize the year as a disappointment. I think if you look back, you can look at it that way, and certainly people are free to. What I have to do is look at it from a bird's eye view and say, like, what is the trajectory of this club? Because things can happen in a game. And what I will say that I think, I don't know that has been recognized, but I certainly recognize, is you can look at it that way, or you can say we did things that no team has ever done before. And I think when you look at any other MLS team that has gone far in Champions League, and look, I credit Seattle, they won it, but it absolutely destroyed their league form. They didn't make the playoffs, and that was a really good team, and a team that we were looking up to at the time because they had won Champions League. If you think back to what our players had to go through last year, and to just make it back to the final, I think another way of looking at it by repeating as Western Conference champions is that there's a lot to be proud of, and many teams would deem that as a success. And I do also think that making the final and saying that it is overall a disappointment, frankly, is disrespectful to all the teams that didn't even make it to the final. So I'm glad you opened the door for me to address that. Looking ahead, I tell you what I'm really excited about is I'm not excited that we're not in Champions League. That's for sure. That is an ambition of this club. That's something that we strive to achieve every single year. I think, though, like we've done every year, we look at the footprint of our calendar and we say, what type of team do we need to compete? And in 2022, we felt, look, this team really needed some veteran experience, guys that knew the league, and we got that, and it worked. We won the Supporters' Shield. We won MLS Cup. Last year, what we looked at is how can we build a team with the depth that can compete on all fronts? And look, did we win the trophy, ultimate trophy that we wanted? No. But did we succeed in competing on all fronts? Yes. We were the last team standing in MLS in Champions League, and there was one team that beat us in MLS Cup. So that was last year. So what I would say is I'm not excited we're not in Champions League, but looking at the footprint of the calendar, I think it will enable us to play a more normal rhythm of games week to week. I don't think we have a midweek game until mid-May, and I think that's just a very different strategy required for this year than there was last year. I think you will soon see we're going to be adding some very exciting talent. I think we will add some experience, but we feel like the players we have, particularly the new ones that we brought on last year, will take a big step forward. I'm talking about Tillman, I'm talking about Bogusz, I'm talking about Aaron Long, I'm talking about Sergi Palencia, I'm talking about Kike Oliveira. And I think also when you think about Eric Dueñas and Nathan Ordaz, we're expecting a big step up. And we have said to our supporters from the beginning that our academy graduates are going to be a big part of what we do at the first team level. So we've been very careful to not block any paths for the players like Eric and Nathan that we think will take a step forward. And we also are soon to announce some really exciting young talent that we think will take this group forward. I think we still have that building out to do, but if you look at a team, if we were playing tomorrow on the 11 that would step on that field, it's a really good group. I just think now we need to round that out, and we will only bring players in that add to the quality we have, which is not easy because of the quality of players we already have, but we have some options that will soon be finalized and announced that we're really excited about.
Thank you so much.
You got it.
Is it too late? I mean, you're already into camp.
Less.
players aren't here yet.
Mhm.
Is it too close to the start of the season for them to be effective and contributors right at the start, or are you thinking more about these guys will be?
No, I
need them
think.
in May?
Well, certainly it's more important. Not May. It's important that everybody's firing first game of the season, and I think we used preseason to prepare for that. I do think some players needed a break. I think there's certain players that we played a year-long season. We had more games than anybody has ever had, and I think the mental and physical toll demanded that some players needed a longer break. So we were flexible with certain players to allow them that adequate rest, and but not that we're doing so to compromise where we think our team will be in February. So the players that we have coming back, they know our system. I do think for players to single out one like Kike Oliveira, it is important that he comes back. He's been training with Uruguay at the pre-Olympics all off season. He is coming back. But for a player like Denis, who's been here now for a year and a half, who needed a little bit of a break, he wants to be here. He couldn't. But Hugo Lloris is also finalizing everything, his matters in the UK, and will be here this weekend. And I think this, and we also, mind you, other teams have been in camp for longer than us because of the mandated 6 weeks break. We have started later, so they're only missing a few days.
The loaning of Mario Gonzalez and now Stipe Buke, and I understand there's reports about Philip Krastad maybe leaving as well. Are these moves that are made because of what you think of them as players and what they need, or because of the moves that you're bringing in, sort of some of these new additions that you're referencing? How does that work together?
They're interdependent, so both. In terms of what I think of them as players, it is not a judgment or anything negative. I think what we always do with all of our players is we say, okay, this is where things stand. This is what is best for you as a player. This is what makes sense for us. So it's interdependent, and in both those cases with Stipe and Mario, Stipe is an incredibly talented player, and I think he showed that. I think there's a player that's ahead of him in his best position that plays every minute of every game and is arguably the best player in the league. So for us, in that case, we had to sit back and say, okay, what's best for Stipe, what's best for LAFC? And we thought that this opportunity at Valladolid that I believe just got announced, hope I'm not jumping the gun, is an opportunity for him to get playing time in a good league and show well, because Denis is here, and we didn't necessarily see that situation changing for Stipe in the short term. What that means long term, we will see. We've had players go on loan and come back, and the loan experience has really helped them develop. But I think Stipe at this stage in his career really needs to be playing, and Valladolid is a phenomenal option for him to get those minutes that he needs. Whether that ends up being to the benefit of LAFC long term or a move, time will tell. Mario was similar in that we brought Mario in with a certain plan in mind, and then as things developed, Carlos then started playing as that in his position. So it was a similar thing, playing time, etc. Mario got a really good opportunity at Gijón. And then on the flip side, where I say it's interdependent, is those moves create the space to then allow us to improve the team in other ways.
The move to bring back Kike, I guess there was some friction, at least publicly, with the Uruguayan national team. Why the decision to bring him back? You know that he's going to be playing, and is important for that squad. And he also spoken about his importance.
Yeah.
How did he take to that decision, and why was that important for you guys?
Yeah, no, it was I was disappointed to see whatever came out publicly, because I feel like we have shown throughout our history to be absolutely respectful and appreciative and supportive of our players joining their national teams. Case in point, there was no FIFA window, no obligation at all to release Kike, and we said it's fine, go and train with him. We know of his importance and what have you. We actually did offer a compromise that allowed him to be a part of the tournament that they actually said no to, and I don't want to get into all the details, but the main reason is, our players do need a break. Kike had been going for a year straight, and we thought we should try to find the right balance, which we definitely tried to do and address with them privately, not publicly. So that was one. And then the other thing is, I think for a player like Kike who comes in mid-season, with the number of games we had, it's really hard for him to really integrate. So much of the work that you see on a game day is prepared on the training pitch, and preseason is the unique opportunity where you get hours on the training pitch for him to adapt and really understand our system. I think Kike will prove to be a phenomenal addition given his skill set and what he brings to our group. I think if you look at him last year, he did so on an individual basis, but if you add his tactical IQ and understanding of our system, I think that is why for us it was important to bring him back after he had adequate rest.
How did he react to that?
Kike wants to play. He wants to please everybody. He wants to please his club. He wants to please the federation. So we do not put the player in any sort of uncomfortable situation between the two groups, and we dealt with everything. So I know if Kike would have gone and played there, he'd have given his all, and I know that when Kike comes back, he'll also give his all.
One more for me, if I could. Lorenzo Della Valle, what are you expecting from him now joining LAFC? Obviously, with Giorgio, it seems like sort of a natural fit, a mentorship there.
Yeah.
Is he a guy that can get regular minutes, do you think?
Yeah, so Lorenzo it did not. Obviously, we had a lot going on, but signing Lorenzo was an incredible coup for LAFC too at the time. He'd come off arguably the best defender in the U19 Euros for Italy. They had a very successful tournament, and he individually as well. So the ability to get that done was something that we always saw this as a possibility, and we had high hopes for him. We didn't sign Lorenzo to be an LAFC 2 player. How quickly he adapted was always an unknown, but he showed right away he has the quality to step up into our first team. So as soon as we saw that last year, this was the plan to bring him up into the first team, and now he's a part of our core of 4 center backs along with Murray, Aaron. I also want to take the opportunity to talk about Eddie Segura, who's now coming back from an injury but looks fantastic. Eddie will be like a new signing for us, and those of us, myself included, and many of you who have followed the club, I mean, what a professional, what a guy, and what a player that we have to welcome back. And he's been looking very sharp in training and has worked so hard over these years. And maybe aside from Eddie and his family, there will be nobody more excited to see Eddie back on that field than myself and our staff.
Sean, just going back to those 3 that he mentioned, going back to Europe, the scouting department started in South America. You added that European element, and now 3 of those first 4 coming from Europe are pretty quickly going back.
Mm-hmm.
Is there something that you learned with your European scouting department in that area?
Yeah, I think that's more coincidental rather than generalizing a geography of where people came from. And we also sent Fall on loan. We also sent Brian Rodriguez on loan. We also initially sent Diego on a loan. So it's something that the conversation comes up, and you have to take your roster and your squad and say what is best for these individual players and how will it help us improve in other areas. I mean, I think if you look at our team, it's really hard to break into, especially if you look ahead at this year. We're having 1 game a week, and there's not the ability to rotate or need to rotate quite as much. You look at those guys that are in that periphery that maybe could compete for minutes, and they all played last year, but we thought for them and for us it made more sense to explore those options. But it had nothing to do with whether they're European or South American or Asian or African. And we just felt that those were the right moves for those players. And in 2 of the cases in particular, but in all of them, I think the greater probability of receiving minutes, it's always what's important to a player. And if we can't guarantee them that, we always are open with them and their representatives to look at options that make sense for both parties.
And then I noticed David Ochoa on the trialist list. I'm curious, knowing that LAFC is always focused on the player as well as the person behind
Yep.
the player. He's had disciplinary issues at past clubs,
Mhm.
showing up to training late, things like that. What have you seen from him here, and why do you see him as a good piece?
Yeah, I mean, David, we welcome the opportunity to take a look at him. He hasn't come late for any training thus far. Look, I think having been a player, having been a young player, I don't think myself, Steve, our staff, there's anything that we haven't seen before. You are absolutely right that we prioritize the person and the character, and we won't sign anybody that doesn't meet our standards. The other thing I will tell you that is a strength of LAFC now that we probably couldn't take, and I don't want to say we take risks, but we have such a strong culture that if a player steps out of line, Steve doesn't even need to say a word. That we have guys here that really uphold the standards and ensure that the expectations of what it means to be an LAFC player and staff member, etc., those are firmly set, and anything less than that is not tolerated.
Last one for me. You mentioned left back. Obviously, with players coming in, what are the other positions maybe that you're looking at that still need to be filled?
I think we can add a piece in midfield. I think we feel very good about the group we have. We have Ilie returning. We have Timmy, who is coming off a very strong camp with the national team. and a performance. So he's ready to go. He's probably ahead of the others in terms of their readiness to play. But excited to see what he'll do this year. I think Timmy's season last year started off so incredibly well, and I think he was beset by injury. He never quite captured that rhythm again, except in certain flashes, but certainly is a top midfielder in our league. And then add to Timmy, you add Bogusz, who I think is really going to take a step forward. He's a player that gets a lot of attention already, and what you see with him in the training ground and his ability, I think, to have a set position moving forward in our group. I know our staff is very excited of what's to come from him. And then I also add Eric Dueñas into that. Eric, more than anybody, is an LAFC system player. He knows this system from when he was 12 years old, and it shows. And I'm really excited for Eric to take another step forward. But having said that, we do need an extra piece, maybe two there. Have some very exciting possibilities there. And then also we will have an announcement very soon about some young attackers that we have coming up front, and we're looking at options and having some advanced discussions with some experienced players in the attack as well.
We'll take a couple questions on Zoom. John Arnold, go ahead, John.
Hey, John Arnold from MLS Soccer. Wanted to ask kind of a philosophical question. Maybe that makes it sound a little more important than it actually is, but you talked about all the work that your staff and the scouts have done this offseason. I wanted to kind of learn a little bit more about that, and also specifically in the context of, AFCON Asia Cup that a lot of fans are watching and enjoying right now. It seems like the days of clubs seeing a player at a tournament and signing that player as a breakout are long behind us. But how important is a tournament like you mentioned, Lorenzo, at the youth level, and seeing players in competitive action at the international level? How has that kind of changed and evolved in the last few years, maybe, and how important are those kind of touchstones that you do have when you're looking and evaluating an offseason?
Yeah, there's a lot there, and I don't know if it's philosophical, but I'll give you my take on it. I don't think it's too much of a change. I feel like for us to succeed, and I'm very grateful to the phenomenal work of our scouts down in South America. Now we're expanding around the world. It's a really interesting question or challenge in that we, because of our finances, have to be there before the bigger clubs. And now I say maybe what is a change is I do think that clubs now are more global in their scouting. You're seeing more players go from South America to the Premier League now, things like that, where maybe we could have got that player first. But if we are in the conversation when England and Europe is already there, it's too late. So your point about going and watching them at a big tournament and uncovering some gem, those days are long gone. But the challenge is the same in the sense that we need to be there before them with less resources than them. So it is a challenge, but I think that's why I take great pride in the phenomenal work of our group. Started in Uruguay and now has expanded into Argentina, Paraguay, Colombia, Ecuador. What am I missing? Colombia, Ecuador. Yeah. And that northern part of South America. So we, it is a challenge, but it's something that I still think, and hopefully if conversations continue, we'll have announcements on that end as to the next wave of talent we see coming from South America.
All right, we got time for two more. We'll go Andy Dioso. Go ahead, Andy.
Thanks, Hey, John. You talked about Eddie a little bit, and I was going to ask you about him. What does that return to play look like from talking to him a little bit around the stadium throughout the time he's recovering, just seeing how he's going? What does that look like realistically for him getting back on the field? And just the importance of keeping Giorgio around. I'm not sure if you talked about that publicly yet, but obviously a big deal for many reasons.
Yeah, I'll take the Eddie one first. Yeah, I mean, I think we need to be realistic, to use the word you used. I think we need to be realistic. We're very excited that Eddie is back and in training, and I think it's going to be, he has been out for a long time. That's not lost on us. I do think that the work he has done is really going to benefit him. He's stronger than before his injury, and all of the work he was able to put in. Eddie's quality, he won't lose. He's a phenomenal passer. His competitiveness, all of that, and of what we've seen physically, he has at least recovered, if not improved, from pre-injury. But now that he is in the stimulus of the game, the day-to-day training environment, I think we need to be cautious, but we're optimistic that with Eddie and the work he's put in with our medical staff, that he will be in line to compete for minutes once we get going. Your second question about Giorgio, look, I don't think I need to explain what an asset Giorgio is to any club. And we were once it was clear to us that Giorgio was finished after the final, we started talking to him about what he wants to do next. And we'd always talked about Giorgio's post-playing career, even when we signed him from Juventus. And so giving him opportunities to grow while also being a huge asset to us. So, if once I hear that this miracle possibility of us getting Hugo Lloris is on the table and I can call Giorgio and say, like, look, this is what my sense is, give me the real scoop on him, is great. And then that's one thing. So he's been involved in our scouting, getting his eye, particularly on the defenders that we're looking at. And then also just his presence in the building now with some of our younger players and the senior players. He still is able to give us that valuable leadership, maybe not in the locker room, but his presence here is still strongly felt within the group.
Last question, Charlie Bum. Go ahead, Charlie.
Hey, John, more about the goalkeeper signing. What led you, or how did that come together, and what led you to make that move? Could you give a little insight into the TikTok on that?
Yeah, sure. So our plan and intention going into the offseason was to keep Max. Max was a phenomenal person, player, and above all, regardless of the fact that he's now not here, what I was so grateful for Max's sake, is that he recovered the way he did, and he finished so strong. I would have felt terrible had Max not had that opportunity to show that he is back to full strength prior to the end of his contract, etc. So we did enter those conversations with Max. As I referenced, at the outset, it does become difficult for us in terms of what we can do with our salary cap, etc. It quickly became apparent that it was going to be a challenge for us to keep Max, and we understand that Max earns the right, as a free agent to go to have that agency to go where he chooses. I do know that it's unfortunate because I do think Max wanted to stay, and we certainly wanted to keep him. However, we had a really constructive, understanding conversation when it came time to the decision. And at that point, then we had to focus on other options. The opportunity for Lloris had come up months prior, but that was not in our plans. But then when we had this big hole to fill at the goalkeeper position, I then reached back out to see what was possible. I spoke to Hugo, met with his family, really got an understanding of what he's looking for in this next step of his career. Tottenham were fantastic throughout. They let us go and watch him train, meet with the goalkeeper coach, see exactly where he's at physically, mentally, everything. And then we were able to secure that signing, which is a huge coup for us. A player of that experience, quality human being, excellent goalkeeper. We're certainly really excited to welcome him and his family in the coming days. I had the opportunity to go to London for his farewell match, and it's similar to Giorgio, and obviously it's not lost on us that Giorgio is leaving, and now we have another person with similar experience, similar success coming into the club because we've seen that value. But similar to Giorgio, the level of praise that people went out of their way to tell me about Hugo, it was at a Giorgio level. And so we're really excited to see what that will add to our group.
Final question.
So does that confirm that his budget number is as friendly as has been reported?
I can assure you that everything that is reported is absolutely accurate. Always.
So first, thank you. I like how we phrased it. Supporters have been chomping at the bit to get information. It's been very quiet.
Mm-hmm.
What's your message to them? You're saying you have signings coming. What do they need to expect and feel as this season gets underway?
Yeah, look, when I tell you, I sort of like, there's nobody other than me would love to have the full roster right now. It has literally been the busiest offseason. What I will tell them is we are I understand, again, what I said earlier, like not knowing what's coming around the corner. What I will say is I would like to think we have a track record at this club of understanding what it takes to win here and in Champions League and what have you. That is still the plan for this year. We are very excited about what is to come. I do understand their frustration. I share the frustration. I wish it was done as well. But as I said, there are reasons for it. It's not because we're not working. It's not because we don't want them now. But I think the judgment should not come today. It should come, at the end of February when you see the exciting team that they'll have on the field to cheer on against Seattle.